In previous movies, I've added vignettes and flicker on different layers. It's possible to create vignette, flicker, and even color tinting all at once with a 3D light. The only catch is, to use a 3D light, you have to have 3D layers. And there aren't any 3D layers in this project. But worry not, I've prepared. Twirl open 02 Scene Pre-Comps. And up top we have an Oh No Robots Alt Edit 3D Layers. Let's double click to open that up. You'll notice that 3D is enabled in all these layers, which really is just a matter of enabling them like this. With all of these layers enabled, I now have 3D layers and I can use a 3D light. I'll go to Layer, New, Light. I'm going to rename this Flicker Light. The light type I want to use is Spot, which is already selected, because that has a cone on it, and that's what's going to give me my vignette. I'm going to alter the color a little bit. I'll select that color and change it to a little bit more of a slightly tinted yellow. A little bit goes a long way with the light. I'll hit OK, and I'm going to raise the intensity to something like 130. I won't worry about the cone angle or the cone feather now. I'll go ahead and check cast shadows, but that's not going to matter too much. So this looks good. I'll hit OK. At the top of my timeline, I now have my flicker light layer. And as we can see, if I click off of it, it's a really strong vignette. Now I did a lot of settings in the light setup, but I can change all those right here if I twirl open the transform and light options for this light. I'm going to go up to the transform options and just look around at these a bit. I can change its placement, position, rotation, orientation, XYZ. It is a 3D layer. But more importantly, I can mess with the light options, like the intensity. I can bring it way up and start to blow this out, or go ahead and hit Command Z to bring it to where it was before. I can adjust my color to nearly any color I want, and it will really reflect it. I'm going to hit Command Z again to go back to where I was. But this is what I really like, the cone feather. I'm going to start to increase the cone feather so it's even softer. If I decrease it, it's really hard, but increase it, it's a really nice soft vignette. And now, the cone angle just above that, I can go ahead and tease that out. Now, I just want to position it a little bit different. And mostly, I want to position this light's point of interest, which is this little dot up here. I'll grab and just kind of move it so I can get this vignette to be a little bit more even. And maybe I'll go into my transform for the light, and I'll go backwards in Z space so it's a little higher up. That's starting to look good. I kind of want to increase the intensity, but I'm not going to do that just yet, because I need this guy to flicker. And the way I'm going to make it flicker is by using a wiggle expression. First, I'll go to the intensity of my light options, hold down Option, and click on the stopwatch to enable expressions. In the expressions, I'll type in wiggle, open parentheses, 16, 25, close parentheses. This means it'll wiggle 16 times per second, and this means that it'll do up to 25 degrees of intensity. I'll just click off of my expression and select a smaller area to preview so I can see some variation. I'll hit N just at about 9 seconds. I'm going to move down and turn off the audio on this layer, and then go ahead and hit the spacebar for preview. That flicker looks okay. Not so bad, definitely noticeable at times. Having the wiggle move at 16 wiggles per second has caused this to move at twice the speed of our 8 frames per second compositions. But that just means there's a lot more variety and variance in how extreme those changes will be. I'm going to pause playback by hitting the spacebar, close up my intensity, and the other thing that I can add a little bit of wiggle to give a little more variety to this flicker, is the position. I'll hold down Option and click on the position stopwatch. And then right here in the expression, I'll type in wiggle, open parentheses, and I'll give this one about the same, 16, 20, close parentheses. So that means it will move 16 times per second up to 20 pixels. Now, because this is 3D, it also might move forward and backwards in space, which might make it even brighter and darker at times. Let's go ahead and click off of that expression and hit the spacebar to preview. So it's definitely made the flicker a lot more extreme by adding that extra wiggle point to it, but also a lot more random. This looks pretty good. It might be a bit too intense, so something I can do is just go to the intensity and move this down to something like 110. And then I can preview again, and it's a little more subtle, which is nice. But because I used an expression to do this, I was able to just move down the original intensity and take everything down a little bit with it. I might even finish up by opening up the intensity and changing this 25 to something like 15. Click off of it, close it up, close up my transform and my light layer, and preview. That starts to be so subtle that it's almost not noticeable, and that's what I want. Before I finish up in here, I'm going to go ahead and twirl open my flicker light, and I'm going to click and drag both my light options and my transform options. I'll go up to my animation window and hit Save Animation Preset. I'll make sure I have my Robots preset folder selected, and I'll change its name to 3D Light Flicker. I'll hit Save, and now if I open my animation presets and my robot presets, there's my 3D light flicker. One thing to note about this, and I'm going to close off this flicker light and turn its eyeball off. I'll make a new light layer, layer, new, light, and I'm going to ignore whatever it's for and just hit OK. I can't click and drag this onto my light layer. It won't let me do that, which is my preferred way to do this. But what I can do is select my light layer, go up to my 3D light flicker and double click it, and it will automatically add it for me. So if I twirl open these settings and these settings of the original, and I take a look at the light options of both, we can see they both have the same expressions, and they have the same settings for the light cone, for everything else. I'll close these both up, and then I'll delete light 1. Turn the eyeball back on for flicker light, and be happy knowing that I have this preset just the way I want it, so I can go back whenever I want. I'm going to close up my Ono Robots Alt Edit 3D layers, and I'm going to go ahead and clean up my effects and presets by just closing things off there. 3D lights create some really nice looking highlights and shadows, realistic too. You are in fact using a sort of actual light, but enabling 3D in a project is a whole new beast. 3D lights and layers use much more computer processing power. The cost-benefit trade-off is up to the animator, but I tend to use 3D lights for this kind of use only if I'm already animating in 3D to start with.